So adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, they're really events that happen to you as a child or as a youth, but that carry through your lifespan to potentially affect your mental health, but also your physical health. I know that we're going to share in the resources various information regarding ACEs, also some places where you could take the ACE assessment if you wish, with the caveat that obviously that can be a heavy topic, and to get your ACE score can be upsetting for folks. So I would really tell people to be in a good space before they do that. But what are ACEs? They fall into several categories. So psychological, physical, or sexual abuse, also physical or emotional neglect, things like witnessing violence in your home, and also household dysfunction, substance abuse, potentially parental separation or divorce, mental illness, or incarceration. That was the original set of ACEs, and this really came about accidentally in the 90s. So the original study was done by Kaiser Permanente and the CDC back in 95 through 97. They screened about 17,000 people in that chunk of study, primarily middle-class folks, very heavily Caucasian, right? 75% were Caucasian, 11% Hispanic, 4.5% Black. So obviously we need more data, and we need better data regarding our BIPOC community. And they looked at how people answered these ACEs questions, whether or not they had experienced adverse childhood events. They found 6 main discoveries. ACEs are quite common. Nearly 2/3 of adults have at least one. They can lead to adult onset of chronic diseases like cancer, heart disease. They typically don't occur alone. If you have one, there's about an 87% chance that you have 2 or more. The more ACEs you have, the greater risk for mental health and physical health concerns. Really, we have to focus more on ACEs surrounding our BIPOC community, so our Black, Indigenous, people of color. And we're just starting to look more on a statewide level at state data. There's a recent initiative in New Jersey by the Office of Resilience to really be more ACEs informed and kind of see what this information shows us. Looking at children, for children who experience 2 or more ACEs, they're nearly 3 times more likely to repeat a grade, and about 5 times more likely to have emotional, behavioral, and developmental concerns like ADHD or anxiety. And the list just goes on from there, right? So children who experience 6 or more ACEs have a shortened lifespan by roughly 20 years. That's a huge chunk of time, obviously, right? In New Jersey, the estimates from 2016 suggest that about 40% of children have experienced at least one ACE, and 33% of children under 5 years old have experienced at least one ACE. So that's New Jersey specific data. For children in families living in poverty, they're particularly vulnerable to ACEs because of things like food insecurity, housing instability, other financial stressors. And we know historically in the United States that people of color are much more likely to live in poverty than Caucasian folks. Homelessness and food insecurity are disproportionately a BIPOC concern. White people in the US have about 13 times the net worth of Black folks. Race-based barriers like redlining have historically limited opportunities for our BIPOC community. So with that in mind, there is a push to expand the traditional list of ACEs, to really look at things like violence outside of the home, living in unsafe neighborhoods, homelessness, bullying, discrimination based on race or ethnicity, and experience of income security, because we know that those are chronic stressors that also affect children on all levels. And so the push is to look at 3 realms of ACEs really being household, environmental factors, and also community. Are there historical traumas? Are there intergenerational traumas that we really need to look at? So that's a very broad look at ACEs. Of course, we'll be happy to answer any other questions that might come up and dive into it a little more.